When I was growing up, my mom, she usually would have a card with words on it and she would have them all over the place, just everywhere. And that's how, well, my parents are deaf. I just want to let you know, my parents are deaf. And so signing was my first language. American Sign Language was my first language, and English my second. But my mother taught me both. So I really picked up on ASL and I learned how to read very quickly. I had my first words when I was 3, and that was really important. And you could use magnets, and as you can see, the different items here, they're on the screen, puzzles and so forth. And these are ABC signing blocks. So you can see the hand shapes there. And this is label around the house where you can make your own labels. As you can see, that's fun.
Some other just basic strategies, and like I said, I cut this down quite a bit and I want to try to move through as much of it as I can. I call some what we know about for our students their bubble. So once we know information about hearing and vision, we may know that they need to see things presented on their left side because that's their better side. And we may know auditorily we need to be within 3 feet. So that might be their bubble. Left and 3 feet away might be where they see and hear you best or access your information best, or even if it's accessing sign language. Um, but it's also really important, besides knowing that communication needs to happen within their bubble, that that bubble can change depending on lots of things. So I always give the example for our students who might not have great night vision. If they're in a dim restaurant, we may be using some more tactile strategies because they can't visually access that environment anymore. If that restaurant is loud and they're using hearing aids and they can't filter out that noise a little bit, they may rely a little bit more on sign language instead of auditory information. So again, it's one of those things where let's give them as many tools as we can, because we know that different situations are going to change those things. We may see that they have a surgery that may help them access information better, or it may make things a little worse for a little while. So we need to be able to adapt accordingly.
I thought I'd kind of launch into some ideas, again, really generated from parents, because, this isn't just our project. This we feel is a shared project amongst all the families that consider themselves part of the Fostering Joy group. But these are their ideas about, practical, simple things you can do that can add joy to your life and to your experience with your child. And one really is just to deliberately schedule time. And I know it sounds so silly, and I hope some of you are already doing this on your own. But just like you write in an appointment with the doctor, or you write in your work schedule, you write in those times where you're going to just take a break and spend some time with your child or children, depending on what your situation allows. So really just scheduling time. And then sometimes that can be difficult, right? Where that time is just carved out just for fostering joy and there's nothing else connected to it. So if that's the case, you can build off of activities that are already happening. I know in my family situation, I felt like I was just being, going from one appointment to the next. And I realized pretty quickly, well, wait a minute, we have an appointment at this, provider, and then we have an appointment over here at this provider, but we've got downtime in between. And literally, I think I might have like sat in the car or the waiting room or whatever. And it was like, this is silly. We all love to be outside. The kids need to be released from sitting in, confined spaces. Let's find a different place to go run around between those two appointments. And we literally did. And it was kind of fun because it was very close to our state capitol and some of the state government buildings. And the grounds are beautiful. And there's sculptures and all sorts of, things to go look at. And sometimes we'd even go into the capitol and we'd look at the portraits of all the governors and their funny hair or whatever it was. But we just wound up making it like, okay, there's our time when we're stuck doing these things, but what can we do in between that maybe would be kind of fun? And so the kids actually kind of got used to, thinking of places where we could go and we could run around. And it just was a a good, much better use of our time than sitting in a waiting room. So.
So why a hearing dog? All my life, I lived with either family or friends, and I could rely on them for these environmental sounds. So if a fire alarm went off, with this actually happened in college, the alarm went off when I was in the shower, didn't hear it, came out of the shower, everyone had evacuated. So I knew that if I wanted to live alone at some point, I would need to be able to be safe. And I also wanted to not have to rely on always living with someone else for my own safety. So without my hearing aids, I could hear some of these loud sounds, but without my cochlear implants, I'm now profound when I take them off. So there are a ton of organizations out there. I spent a lot of time researching all these different organizations. They have different training programs. They might use different types of dogs, different minimum age requirements. But my mom actually knew someone with the Canine Companions dog, and there were things about their program that I liked. So I ended up applying right around the time that I scheduled my first surgery.
I'm going to start with just kind of the what, where, when, how, why, but we're going to start with the why, because I think for all students, it's really important to know the why to everything that we do. So the first reason that we look at calendar systems is to help a child understand their expectations throughout the day. And one of the reasons this is important, especially in the world of dual sensory loss, is that our kids often have things happen around them or happen to them, but they don't have much control over what's going on throughout their day. And so even for a child who may not also have vision loss, but only has hearing loss, they may be missing those natural cues that are happening in their school day. So like the bell ringing to change class or somebody knocking on the door might not be as clear for them. And so we want to give them as many tools to kind of expect what's going on through the day as we possibly can. So we may pair this calendar system with some time tools or different vocabulary that will help kind of let them feel like they have some, well, not even let them feel like, let them have some control over their day. So that's one of the biggest components. The next part is it facilitates communication. And so oftentimes a barrier in the world of dual sensory loss is communication, that our kids may have unique communication needs. So some of our kids may be using a picture system paired with sign language. They may be using real objects. And so we want to make sure that we're facilitating ways for them to be able to tell us their wants and their needs, and also to just be able to comment, and for us to communicate those things to them as well. Because again, we are giving some level of control. This helps with some of those negative behaviors that we often see at transition times. So that's a huge benefit of calendar systems, and it provides that emotional support that goes along with those behavior issues that arise when we don't know what's happening throughout our day. It's a way to increase our literacy. And so no matter what format we are using for our calendar system, this is always vocabulary building. And I tell this to teachers often because, and we'll get into this, when we look at this carefully, it may look like it could be time consuming. And what we always say is this could just be a natural part of your day where you're also increasing reading skills and the ability for a child to take in some kind of symbolic information. So, you know, when we think of literacy, a lot of the times traditionally we think of reading and writing, but literacy for some kids can be knowing what an object is, or being able to hand you a diaper when they need to be changed. And of course, that might be something more intensive for a child with more unique needs, of course, but we're still building those skills. And so for a child that may be a print reader, we can incorporate that into the calendar system.
We offer extensive programs throughout the Southeast. We serve 12 states in the Southeast region of the country, and we have 4 nationwide initiatives in robotics, cybersecurity, ACT college prep, and MELD, which is mechatronic engineering leadership for the deaf. This focuses on electrical, computer, and mechanical engineering, a blend of all of those. So these 4 nationwide initiatives we work with, and we also provide resources to help students to be able to experience and be exposed to real life problem solving, critical thinking skills, teamwork, collaboration, communication skills. All of these soft and hard skills are critical for their success in their life and in their future careers.
And always, as an educator, I like to start out with the definitions, because I think you can find a lot if you just start with definitions. And Webster says dad is just the male parent. That's it. That's the end of the definition. And so if you look at, well, where do we learn to change those roles? Where do we find new roles? And I think for a lot of us, if you grew up with a father in the house, then that's the first place you get that definition. That's where that socialization of your roles come from. But if you don't, and then you must look other places. And media is for a lot of children, a lot of fathers. It's where they receive these roles, where they receive this training.
Those are really important things to have with your audiologist from day one. And educational can be any setting. Don't think your child's too young to start having those conversations. Daycare settings, preschool settings, talk about services, even through BabyNet or early intervention that your child may be getting. What does your child's everyday look like? What environmental sounds are they associated with? What language growth opportunities are you looking at? And if your child's at school age, it's been a year. So, these were conversations we should have had already, but making sure even now it's even more crucial. There are new settings, there are new hurdles in school. So, we have face-to-face and hybrid and virtual and all the new terminology that we were not dealing with before. So it's even more important to have those conversations and talk about whether your child has an IEP or a 504. And if your child does have that, what services are being provided? Is there a speech pathologist? Is OT, PT? Is there a teacher of the deaf? Is it just gen ed? And when you have that information, making sure that, again, it doesn't have to be an educational audiologist. This can be your private audiologist, and making sure that those conversations with the team are happening with the private audiologist, giving that permission. There have been a lot of times that I've had students that have gotten new amplification or had a change in their hearing loss, and it wasn't immediately relayed to me or the school team. And those are important factors in that educational planning for all team members, not just team members that may be associated with any form of hearing loss. And the next